Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Lovell Casiero. I am looking forward to bringing our guest on today. She is a fantastic woman by the name of Megan Dolan. She's based in Long Beach and she is a writer, an actor, and a storyteller. I can't wait for you to hear Megan's unshakable story of her son being diagnosed at 5 years old with autism, and how she turned her outlet into a nationwide performance where she tells stories of how she had to handle certain situations that she did not feel qualified for. In fact, the name of her tour is Not the Right Mom. So stay tuned. We're going to get started, and I look forward to welcoming Megan Dolan, founder, actress, writer, all of the above for Not the Right Mom. You're going to love this.
I see hate through the pain. I see light in the rain. Dreams of brighter days. Tell me what you're thinking. I have hope in my spirit, flames of love in my heart. Baby, let me tell you something. I'm about to dance. You realized you're not in control. Once again, tell you once again. Hallelujah, I'm on my way to be the best version of me. Mama knows how to wake you up to dance. Mama knows you're not a mama knows how to wake you up to dance. Mama knows how to wake you up to dance. Mama knows you're not a mama knows how to wake you up to dance.
Hello and welcome back to Unshakable with Lovell Casiero. Delighted to have my guest today, Megan Dolan, who is the founder of a theater production called Not the Right Mom. So that got my attention when I received an email about her show, and I know that you are going to enjoy her story today. Megan, welcome to Unshakable.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We're delighted to have you. And as you know, and as the audience knows, that Unshakable is about going through something in your life and being able to come through unshaken, even though it might have shook you pretty hard for a while. And I think, a lot of the mothers out there, when they hear your story, are going to really take their hats off to you for finding an outlet for some of the things that you were going through with your son when he was 5 years old. So let's jump right into that. Talk to me about David's diagnosis.
Sure. When he was 5 years old, my husband and I, we kind of noticed like he would talk to us, but when extended family would come over, like he wouldn't talk to them. And then the teachers at preschool and TK were kind of telling us, he won't talk to other kids. And we didn't quite get the extent of it, because at home he would talk and converse with us. So we finally took him. We found a doctor who specialized in selective mutism, because that's an anxiety disorder in children where they're unable to speak in social situations. Like they can talk where they're comfortable, but they're literally frozen in, school situations or social situations. And so she started working with us in play therapy, and the whole family would go once a week. And then, so she observed him there and at school and at home. And then she gave us the diagnosis, and it was selective mutism and autism, which was a real shock to us, because I had it in my head that speech delays were a sign that your kid had autism, and our son was speaking, at 18 months old. He was, very articulate. So at that point, I started going to different support groups and child psychologists, and I also, just to give you my background, I have a theater arts background. I have a degree in theater from Cal State Long Beach. I was part of the Elephant Theater Company for 20 years. And so the way I process things is just through writing. So I was writing this whole time through all these experiences. And one of the things that struck me was a lot of the parents I encountered in the autism world were very type A, very on the ball. They knew, every step that you should take. They were telling me to hire a lawyer to sue the school district to make sure that his needs were met. And meanwhile, inside, I'm thinking, that is not me. I am not type A. I can barely match 2 socks in the morning, but didn't want them to know that, so I was kind of in the closet. So as I'm writing these kind of experiences, I was also part of a storytelling group called Expressing Motherhood, where you would share 10-minute stories on motherhood. So I would work on these pieces and bring them in and do them in front of an audience. And so it just started to grow, the pieces would really work. And once I had enough of them kind of put together, the producer of Expressing Motherhood, Lindsay Cavich, she said, just book a theater or you'll never do it. And so I did. I booked a theater. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. But before we get there, I also wanted to ask you, was David your first child, or did you have other children?
He was my first child. So I think that was part of kind of not recognizing exactly what was going on. Yes. And I just want to say, he has, in the show, he asked me to change all the names. So we're using the name that, his name in the show to refer to him. Yeah.
Of course. And you have David has a younger sister.
Yes.
So we talked about her whenever she saw the show for the first time, and you were excited to have her be there and see the show. But before we get to there, let's talk a little bit about how the show evolved. And I can't wait to find you somewhere and attend the show myself, but I haven't had the pleasure of seeing it. You are one of my first guests that I've never met in person.
Oh, wow.
I would love to tell the viewers how it came to be. I am a member of an association called the North Carolina Performing Arts Association. And it's all of these venues like you see in these communities now where they have, the DPAC in Durham, North Carolina. They have one in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it's all of those. And we have a community email. And all of a sudden I get this email and the title is Not the Right Mom. And I'm like, not the right mom? Like, what in the heck is that? So it got my attention. I didn't hit delete. And I started reading about it, and you were letting them know that you had availability for shows, and you were advertising to the directors of the facilities. And I just said, you know what? I love this story. I love how Megan took something that changed the dynamics of your family. And I found out after I talked to you and after we met by a Zoom meeting, I found out that you had been in theater and you chose this as the way for your outlet to deal with everything that you were dealing with. And I just thought it was a beautiful story. So now I would love to just talk a little bit about your son and some of the things that you were dealing with after you found the diagnosis that made you feel like you were not the right mom.
Sure. The first support group meeting that I went to, it actually turned out to be for young adults on the spectrum. And so when I walked into the meeting, they thought that I had autism. And then when I figured that out, and then I got defensive, like, no, it's not me. And then I was thinking, why am I defensive? I shouldn't be defensive. There's nothing wrong with autism. So it was just all these different levels of processing the diagnosis. And then when I finally went to the right support group for parents of kids with autism, the first advice they're giving me is to hire a lawyer. And, and they were telling me that the child psychologist we were with was doing the wrong therapy and I needed a different kind of therapy. So it was just that overwhelm. And they were saying things like, if your school doesn't have an autism acceptance week, then you start one. And it just felt so out of my skill set. Right. And so I was just kind of defeated at first. And that's kind of the basis of the show is, what if my son doesn't get the support he needs because I'm not the right mom? Like, that was the fear I was working with. Um, but slowly, the support group, even though it was overwhelming, it did lead me to the doctor who was able to really give kind of I don't want to say a better diagnosis, because the doctor we were with, she was just more intuitive, and everything she said was correct, but it wasn't kind of laid out in the way that you needed for the school system to kind of accept the diagnosis. And so we found this other doctor, and then we were able to, because we had moved my son to a private Catholic school because it was a small class size and it was calmer, and we were able to, through our health insurance, get him a support person at school through our insurance, so we didn't have to deal with the public school system, which can be very challenging. And so I kind of, avoided that big challenge because we were able to do it a different way. So those little things like slowly started to fall into place. And then we slowly found our people who accepted our family the way we are, with all the quirks and all the challenges and the rigidity and things. So it slowly grew over time. But yes, at first it was very overwhelming and just kind of felt really alone and scared. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have actually have a good friend whose granddaughter, and it was amazing to me that it took so long for them to get the diagnosis of what it actually was. And there were so many symptoms, and you could tell that the child was definitely going through something and not in a good place. And it took a long time to actually get it. And it just sounds like to me, and I am not an expert on this and by any shape of the imagination, but it just sounds like it doesn't manifest itself in every individual in the same way.
Absolutely not. And there's a saying, they say, if you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. It looks very different. It looks very different in boys than it does in girls. Yes, you're absolutely right. And like I said, my son was talking at a very young age. And then the doctor said, oh yes, well, one sign of level 1 autism is what it's known as now. She was calling it Asperger's, is that they're incredibly articulate. And I was like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, who sets out to prepare for something like this until these are the types of things when you have a diagnosis like this, or any type of diagnosis, you don't know how to deal with it until you're in the deep weeds of dealing with it. So,
well, and you get different information. We had another doctor who said, oh, well, he's just like Sheldon on the Big Bang Theory. He's going to be fine. So I was like, is he going to be fine? Or do we need immediate intervention? Or do we need to sue the school district? And you have to kind of intuitively figure that out for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
How, when your daughter came along, what is the age difference between her and her brother?
Less than 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So 22 months.
So that is now another dynamic, if you will, in the family. She, as I know from speaking with you and getting to know you, does not have any autistic symptoms or anything. So, but how did that dynamic within the family affect or change things in your everyday life, besides it's always different when you have 2 kids versus 1?
Right. Well, the great thing is that her and her brother have been very close since very early on. And yes, she hasn't been diagnosed with autism. She does have severe ADHD, which I think we got her diagnosis maybe when she was 8 or 9. But I do think early on, when we were kind of realizing what was going on with my son, there was a lot of attention put on him. We had aides, in the house with us, going on outings and things like that. And I think there was probably a little bit of not a neglect, but just she felt like, oh, my brother is getting more of the attention. And it's funny, when she started preschool, because one thing my son always said to us was, I don't talk at school. Like, I don't talk at school. And so my daughter started saying that she doesn't talk at school. And we were like, what? But it turned out her desire for connection was greater than her fear. So she did start making friends at school, whereas my son was just so locked in that he really needed support in breaking through that. But it really worked for him. And now he has 4 like very close friends that he's had since kindergarten and 2nd grade, and continues. It's funny that he's in high school now, and he's definitely made friends in high school, but he says he calls them, they're people that I talk to. He doesn't consider them, in the inner circle. But
Right.
yeah.
And they don't know how lucky they are, right?
Right.
So,
No,
yeah.
for sure. He's very discerning. Yeah.
I want to go back just a little bit, just to kind of set like some history here, as to you and because as you know, I mentioned to you that I had written a book about leadership. And when I wrote the book, I called it Lead Like a Girl, because it was my journey. It's genderless, but it was my journey as a woman in hospitality. And when I realized, as I was writing this book, and I say this all the time, is I couldn't just write leadership lessons. I kind of had to write from the life lessons first, because the life lessons are what caused me to be able to adapt the leadership skills that I was able to bring to a 30+ year career in hospitality and another decade of running my family's, my dad's television ministry. And I look back into the decades that built me, one of my favorite chapters, and I think about like what I was doing in my 20s and what I was doing, when I became the person responsible for the television ministry at 30 years old. Can you tell me just a little bit about your life as a single woman, and how, what is there that you were going, digging in on to deal with what life handed you many years later?
Oh, so in my like early 20s, starting there. So I went to college and was a theater major, and graduated with a theater major, which means you're going to make tons of money. And but I moved. I was living in my parents' house in Fountain Valley, California, and I moved to Los Angeles right after graduation, and I got a job at the Cheesecake Factory, and I was waiting tables during the day, and I was taking acting classes, and going on auditions, and developed this very close group of friends who are all doing the same thing. And right before that, I had been in a pretty like a serious relationship, and we drank a lot. Like, that was just part of our friend group, and I was concerned about how much he was drinking. And at one day he turned to me and he said, "You drink as much as I do." And I said, "What?" And so I just decided to stop drinking right then and there, because I wanted him to stop, so I stopped, which is, kind of codependent. But when I moved to LA, I was kind of in a pretty serious depression, I think, because I had stopped the drinking, but I hadn't dealt with all the reasons why I was drinking, and I was very young. I was 21 when I stopped drinking. So I started going to AA in LA, in Hollywood, which is the best place for.
Hang on for a second, though. Don't you need to be 21 to drink?
Yes, well, legally. This was the 80s, Lovell.
I
So
know. I know.
we
I
were
know.
always telling our parents we were going to the movies, and then we'd go drink in a park. I don't know. My friends had ways of getting alcohol.
I grew up in the 80s too. That was kind of a joke, a bad
Yeah,
joke, Megan.
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. So yeah, so I started going to a 12-step program in Hollywood, and there's actors there, writers, just directors, and it's just the best. You just hear the most honest, stories. And it was just kind of the greatest thing I ever did for myself, because my dad was a burnout Catholic, so I wasn't raised with any religion at all. I didn't have any God in my life. So it was neat because I didn't have any preconceptions. So I could just be like, oh, sure, higher power, like that's fine. Whereas a lot of people come in with a lot of baggage around religion and that's hard for them. So I just accepted it. And it really, I feel like my 20s, I basically spent a decade just going to meetings, working the steps, being of service. And I felt like it really laid the groundwork for my adulthood. I kind of learned the skills that I needed to.
You know, when I called you and we spoke about your story, I had no intention of even going back that far or talking about that. But you, several times when we were talking, you referenced 12-step program. And I have had family members that went through it. There's probably been times in my life I could have benefited from it, to be honest with you. But I've had family members that went through it for drugs and alcohol, and I understand it. And I think it is a beautiful program that lays a really good foundation of dealing with life. I mean, I've gone to meetings with them to support them. And I just think that it's a beautiful foundation to deal with life. And so now fast forward, you became a mom, you're married, you have a son, and at 5 years old, he's diagnosed with this. And I have to believe that there were times that you had to pull back from that decade, that you were
For sure.
building that structure of the support of the higher power and the belief that you had in you as a person, because they also help you understand how to love yourself, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
I'd have to imagine that helped you get you through some of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the phrase that popped in my head is life on life's terms, just because there was a certain amount of like self-pity, or why is this happening to me? I don't feel equipped to handle this. But then you just kind of have to pull from that deep part of yourself. And the other thing that I've learned for myself is I have a lot of resilience. I get burnt out, not easily, but I'm not great at balancing things and keeping everything, in check. I kind of like hit the wall, but then I can always regroup and things always look better the next day. And learning that about myself and having compassion for that, rather than why am I not good at this? Is just knowing like, oh, I need some rest, and then I can tackle it again tomorrow. So
I always say, like, the person that we're usually last to give grace to is ourselves. And,
absolutely.
as I am transitioning in this new journey from going from corporate life to what I am currently doing, I have to remind myself of that quite often. Like, I go home and think, oh, I wanted to accomplish this, this, and this. Well, even though I accomplished that, and that, and this got left, I still have to remind myself, like, you still, you accomplish some things. Tomorrow's another day, and give myself some grace. And sometimes it's the last person that we give grace to as ourselves. I want to start talking about your show, and I am so excited. And I do want to let the people that are viewing this podcast know that in some place, probably towards the end, so don't scroll away until we get to the end. We're going to list the 26-27 schedule, where you can see Not the Right Mom with Megan Dolan. And so I want to talk a little bit about this, but I also know that when I spoke with you before, I learned something, and that was that wasn't the name of your show to begin with.
That's right.
And you had to explain to me what I knew what it was. I just didn't know what they were called. So let's start there, and then let's talk about what people would experience in your show.
Sure. So yes, the title of the show used to be Lemur Mom, because we can't all be tiger moms. And what a lemur is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a small creature. I think it's in the rainforest or the jungle. I'm not sure where they live normally. But when you see pictures of them, they're usually clinging to a branch. Their eyes are really big, these big yellow eyes. They kind of look like raccoons, like ring-tailed lemurs. That's what I pictured in my head. And when I was writing the show, I had a line in the show about, I'm trying to think of the exact line, like, oh, my son needs a tiger mom right now, but I'm really no more than a lemur mom clinging to a branch, staring big-eyed into the darkness. So that was the line. And now in the show, like a picture of a tiger comes up when I say it, and then a picture of a lemur comes up. So anyone who doesn't know what it is, like, gets it. But
it's cute as a button. It really is cute,
so
right?
cute. So when I was writing the show, and like I mentioned earlier, I had booked the theater, so I just had to come up with a title, and I'd never intended to name it that for the long haul, but I just said Lemur Mom. It's called Lemur Mom because we can't all be tiger moms. And that name stuck for a few years, but I found that anytime I would tell someone the name, I had to back it up and explain it. So kind of brief history of the show, we opened in 2018. I did several runs in 2019, and then 2020, we went dark for 3 years. And I thought I might never do the show again, but I just wanted to do it at least one more time. So coming out of the pandemic, 2023, I was able to do it at Long Beach Playhouse. And then I was accepted into something called the Amplify program at the Curtis Theater in Brea, which is a program for marginalized voices. So you submit if you have stories about, things like autism or things that aren't a lot of times that you see on stage. And I was accepted. And so that was April 2024. And I kind of thought, this will be the last time I do the show. It's been a great run. I had burned through my audience. I didn't know how to kind of make the jump to the next level. Wouldn't you know it, at that show was a man named Chris Wolf from Torrance Cultural Arts Center. And we talked the next day. He said, I think this show could tour, but you have to change the name. So he was the one who, because he's like, I can't market Lemur Mom. No one knows what that is. And as soon as he said it, I was like, he's right. But I went down the rabbit hole, like trying to find names. But I just kind of went back to the theme of this show was, what if my son doesn't get the support he needs because I'm not the right mom? And so that's what I ended up landing on. And I find that it really resonates with people. I say the name now and they're like, oh yeah, me too.
I think a lot of moms feel that way, and whether no matter what children they are raising or leading. I know my mom probably felt that way about me when I was a teenager growing up in the 80s. She probably was saying, I didn't sign up for this. Right. Thankfully, she stuck with me. But I always say I was the child that my sister was the good child, and I was the child that put every gray hair in my mom's head. Yeah. But I was able to see some of your clips. And is it just you in the show, yes, or are there other people in the show?
It's just me. That was part of, because my kids were so little, I started writing one-person shows, because then I didn't have to worry about rehearsing with other people with my schedule. So I'd run lines in the car. It just made it really flexible for me. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to share where you're going to be in the 26-27 season. And I am hoping and praying that we will be somewhere close to me so that I can go and see the show. But I have seen some of the clips, and I just love the whole concept of what you did. I always, when we have a subject matter like this, I always like to highlight two things. And one of them is any nonprofit organization that we would want to call out for people who may be new moms and moms and dads, not knowing how to approach a diagnosis that they may have just gotten from the doctor about their child. And then the second thing is coming through everything that you came through and just being so vulnerable, and even, doing a theater show about not being the perfect mom for this beautiful child you were handed to raise. What advice would you want? As you know, like, the theme of the show is you could have been shaken, you could have been broken, but you came through this not only unshakable, but you took I mean, this is cliche, but you literally took lemons and made lemonade, because now you're not only dealing with it on your own outlet, but you are also helping so many others that feel isolated and scared and not prepared to take this leap into, what life is doing.
Well, the two nonprofits that jumped to my head. One is a wonderful group called We Are Brave Together, and it's a support group for moms with children with unique needs or disabilities, and it is nationwide. And it's a group that was started here in Southern California. But it has spread across the country. The founder, Jessica Pate, she was part of, I just did this show locally in Torrance, and We Are Brave Together had a presence there and had a table in the lobby and was part of the talk back. So that was wonderful. And another one, a group that I just got connected with, it's called Hope on the Hard Road. And it's also for parents of children with disabilities. And I got to speak at their conference this year, and it was a wonderful, I don't know if they're national, they're based in San Diego right now, but there's another wonderful group. But as far as advice, yeah, I don't ever like to use the word advice because everybody's journey is so different. But I think, like we were talking about earlier, one essential component for me is grace. Grace for myself, grace for my family that doesn't look like other families. Where I get in the most trouble is when I start comparing us to neurotypical families. And then I have to go back to my neurodivergent family friends and be like, oh, right, okay, this is my tribe. Because I remember being at we went to this wonderful co-op preschool, and they would have these parent meetings, and there was she was an occupational therapist, or I can't remember who the expert was, but the parents were asking, how do you know if you're a family that might need to seek a diagnosis or seek help? And I just remember her saying, well, are things a lot harder for you than other families? Like, is it harder to get out the door? Is it harder? Are things just harder? And I remember just like nodding my head, like, yes. And part of what we haven't talked about yet is through my son's diagnosis, I got an ADHD diagnosis in my 40s, which was so revelatory, but at the same time was just kind of like, oh, like that makes sense of why just these kind of like whenever I'd walk into somebody's house and there'd be no clutter, right? I was like, how do you do that? Like, how are you able to keep these spaces clean? And I really feel like I was able to manage my ADHD, not knowing I had it until I had kids, and then it all just became that much harder. So I got off the topic, but my advice would be to have grace, and especially at the very beginning when it's all overwhelming, to know that you can't make a wrong decision here, because it's always that feeling of like, what if we go with this doctor and that's not the right doctor, or I do this therapy and it's not the right therapy. It's okay, and there's time. Like, you start this therapy and it doesn't work, and then you shift. And it's also okay to say, I can't do 5 of the therapies right now. I can't drive all over town because I have another kid and I have pets and I have parents. So it's okay to take it slow and choose your priorities. That's what I would say.
I did want to go back because I said we would, but can tell us about the first time that your daughter saw the show?
Oh, yes. So my daughter, and because I didn't use my son's real name, I guess I won't use her real name either. In the show, she's called Ivy. She picked that name. And so she was 11. So this was coming out of the pandemic. I knew I was going to be doing the show again, and the kids were now old enough where I was like, oh, they need to know they knew I was doing a show. They knew that they was doing a show about when my son didn't talk, and he was like, oh yeah, remember when I didn't talk? Like, why didn't I talk? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But then now when I was going to do the show again, he was in 6th grade and my daughter was in 4th grade. So we talked to them about the show and that I was going to be doing the show. And then they watched the video. And they were both like excited about it. My son said he didn't want to see it in the theater, and I was like, that's fine. But my daughter really did. She was super excited. She does musical theater herself. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to be so proud of me. Like, I can't wait for her to sit in the audience. We'll bring her up on stage for the talk back, and she can do the talk back. Just real parental fail, not realizing in her 11-year-old brain, watching this show, that her character is depicted in the show, but it's a much smaller part than her brother. So her little brain just said, oh, my brother's more important than me. As long as my brother's okay, that's all that matters. I'm not as important as him. And so she just kind of, sitting in the dark watching me, she just started to feel like this big. And then we brought her up on stage afterwards, and I could tell something was really wrong. And this was, it was a pretty kind of one of those psychic wounds that you never want to inflict on your own kid. And it didn't come all the way out probably until a year later. We were in therapy. And I think, she, of course, you don't know when you're that age, like what exactly is working on you, but she had some pretty severe anxiety and just like sleeping in our bed for several months. But also we lost my mom, and we lost my husband's dad in pretty close succession. Is that the word? Yeah. That year. So we all thought it was that, which I think it partially was, but then it also came out like this wound that she had from seeing the show. And we worked through it with her therapist, and she still hasn't wanted to see the show. She's 14 now, but she still hasn't wanted to go to the theater and see it. She's given me her blessing to do it. But one of the wonderful things is we have original music that's been composed for the show, and she sings on one of the songs that's in the show, and she designed some of the t-shirts. We have these lemur t-shirts, and she designed the lemur. So that, and she's also helps me with my social media because she's much better at it than I am.
I wish I had one to help me.
Yes. So yes, but that was something I did not anticipate, Lovell. I was like, oh, that was a mistake.
Well, I think I wanted to make sure that we talked about it on this show, because there are many moms and parents and dads of children that have special needs. And I will tell you, I referenced my sister and I a while ago, and she truly was the good sister, and I was the hellion, if you will. And I know that because of my antics, my mom spent more time on me than she spent on Joy. And we all have a great relationship today. And thankfully, like they gave me grace when I didn't even give myself grace. But I know that I brought a lot of drama to the family, and Joy just was like a wonderful person, and she still is. But I think that there are parents out there that need to hear, like they need to hear that. And sometimes, you do raise and love and tend to your children in different ways. It doesn't mean you love them more or you love them less. It just means that they need you differently. And I thought that was a wonderful part of your story. And I thank you so much for being willing to come on and really just be vulnerable and talk about this. And I'm excited to be able to share your schedule so that people can come and see you in person. And I just wanted to tell this story. And I think, if I remember correctly from our previous conversation, that your son is about to go off to college. Is that correct?
Not yet. He's a sophomore in high school. So we're starting to look at colleges. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that'll be, an interesting search, I'm sure. So.
Yes. And he did, I don't know if I told you this, he came to see the show live in theater just recently.
Oh,
Which,
good.
yes, yeah, because he saw some testimonials from one of my Tacoma shows, and he said, I'm intrigued. And so he came and he sat in the back, and afterwards he said to me, I really loved it, and I want to see it again. And I asked him, I said, what did you love about it? And he said, I really related to it.
Yeah.
Which was Oh, sweet.
How sweet.
Yes,
Well, of course, dear, it's about you.
right, right. But
So,
I think he has enough distance from it now to almost be like, oh, what an interesting story.
well, I know people that have been watching this are very intrigued as well, and I know that they would love to see some of your clips on your website. So remind me and the viewers what your website is and where they can find that.
It's nottherightmom.com, and there's some promos on there, and I have a TED Talk that I did many years ago that's also on there, and you can find out more about it. Yeah. But I'm going to be in North Carolina next March, University of North Carolina at Wilmington. Yeah, March 12th. So
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
That is like right down the road from me.
Oh,
So
that's
I will
great.
definitely be there, and we'll have to hopefully spend some time together when you're in the
That
area.
would
You have
be
to come out
wonderful.
to the beach. I live on
Oh,
the north side of Wilmington, and we live in a little beach community. So
oh,
it's about to get
lovely.
really busy, but March is a great time to
Oh,
come
good,
to the beach. So,
good. I've never been to
um,
North Carolina. I can't wait.
and you're based out in
Southern California. Yeah.
Southern California. That's right. You're on the West Coast. So,
Yes.
well, listen, I personally, after getting to know you and hearing your story, I think you are an extraordinary mom,
Thank you.
and that both your children are very, very lucky to have you. And I know that they feel that way too. So, and bless you for all of the moms and dads and parents out there and extended family that are learning how to cope and how to adapt. And I think, our message here is give yourself as much grace as you give others. So it's been a pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to sharing your story.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for not deleting the email and being, drawn in by the title, Not the Right Mom. That's what I was hoping would happen.
That is definitely what caught me. And thank
That's
you for
great.
saying yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yes.
answering. I have to tell you, I was so excited when you responded and set up a call that, talking about my sister, I usually talk to her on the way home, and I said, guess what? I said, the lady responded, Megan responded, and she's actually set up a call. So I was super, super excited that
that's
you were
great.
coming on the show. So thank you so much. And for all of you who are listening to this wonderful story today, we drop a new episode every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., just in time for your commute. And you can find me on YouTube. You can find these Unshakable stories on YouTube. If you're not following my channel, please do. Unshakable with Lovell Casiero. And it's also on Spotify and Apple Podcast. If this has touched you today, if this meant something to you, or you know someone who needs to hear this, I invite you to share it with them and pay it forward, share it with them, and be a great one to make go viral. Let's make this one go viral. How's that? But until we meet again, as always, be well, be loved, and most of all, be you. God bless.
I'm here for the group. Yes. They're in the back. What is wrong with me? I won't even say the word. I'm not the right mom.
She's so relatable. As a parent, we all feel like we're just not enough.
It treats us like we're nothing. Nothing.
It's amazing to go through trials and tribulations in life and have someone bring out the laughter and the joy.
Why won't he play with us? I don't know why. I don't know what I've done. I'm sure that I'm too helicoptery, and I hover over him and anticipate his needs, and I need to teach him independence, but he screams and cries and flaps and growls, and I don't know what to do, Mia. I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do, Mia. Tell me what to do.
It's helpful, it's soothing, it's relatable.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel that, like, I can do this.
Pretty sure that's too much to ask of a 5-year-old. I'm dazed, off center, and I want someone to blame. So I turn to my husband. You think I'm autistic?
It's hysterical. She's an outstanding writer. It's clever, it's witty, it's sharp, and it's different.
Kale blend. He does not know about the kale, but it is there.
It really is about the connection we share with our children, but also I think it's important in the show where she discovers things about herself.
Receiving this preliminary diagnosis, first thing I do, Google celebrities with ADHD.
It makes you think, it makes you feel, it makes you connect.
There are also hidden gifts that A-brainers, as she calls us, can be perseverant, compassionate, and we tend to thrive in situations of chaos.
The balance is so great that one minute you're laughing your butt off and the next minute it punches you in the gut.
The door opens, he sees me, races down the hallway, barrels into me and hugs me tight.
It makes you feel so deeply because she loves so hard.
And there it is.
It's a hero's journey. Go through all the tumult to come out changed
Shelley,
and accepting of yourself.
David has autism. We're trying to find the right therapist.
You'll see that together we can make it through. I see hate through the pain. I see light in the rain. Dreams of brighter days. Tell me what you're thinking. I have hope in my spirit, flames of love in my heart. Baby, let me tell you something. I'm about to dance. You realized you're not in control. Once again, tell you once again.